Hey y'all, what's going on? Ooh, it's May the 5th, 2015. I'm back. May the 5th. Now, if you live in Texas and you go to public school, you know that May the 5th is Cinco de Mayo, which is some sort of Mexican holiday. And I'm going to be frank with you, I have no idea what it pertains to. Nor do I care. If you look at the flag in back of me, you're going to realize that nor do I care anything about a Mexican holiday because I live in America. And so, no, I don't give a dang about Cinco de Mayo. Anyways, briefly, I haven't been covering gas watch very closely, but you know what? Gas prices are skyrocketing. I believe they're around 240 now. And they're just gonna keep going up. And I'm not a genius. You already know this. Anyways, let me get into why I'm making this video. Like you might already know, I'm in the process of tearing down every single politician from San Antonio. Every single one. Because most of them, the good majority of them, are democratically aligned. Just as democratically aligned as the politicians in Baltimore or all over the United States. There's little cities here and there that are liberally aligned, such as San Antonio, Texas, by way of their politicians. I don't really believe that educated people from San Antonio share in any of the policies of politicians here in San Antonio as of recent decades. Anyways, if you're going to do research on politicians from San Antonio, spineless, worthless, snakes in the grass politicians from San Antonio, you might as well go to the big dog. If you live in San Antonio or you know hardly anything about San Antonio, you know the big dog is Julian Castro. This is the former mayor of San Antonio, who recently got pulled up and cradled by his Lord and Savior, Barack Obama. He got pulled up to the position of Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, of Housing and Urban Development, which is not a shock to me at all in any way. Which is cabinet, is in the cabinet of the executive and chief himself. Uh, to simply put, he's like this with Obama. All right, former mayor of San Antonio is like this with Obama. A lot of San Antonio citizens should be very concerned about this, and they should also be concerned with the fact that there's not a politician here who wouldn't take Julian Castro's place and do exactly what he's doing. So I decided to do a little bit more research and get a little bit more familiar with the current agenda of one Julian Castro. Now, let me just put it to you like this: the secretary, which pretty much heads up the housing and urban development program of the United States, the secretary, well, on record, he he pulls in about $200,000 a year annually. Money that we know about, $200,000 a year to do what he's doing for a department who has a budget of $46 billion annually as of recently. $46 billion. Now, this is a number that people of my social status can hardly wrap their heads around. $46 billion a year to run a program that was founded by Lyndon Johnson, that should already be a red flag, to give people housing, to give them money for housing that they cannot afford. Now, to just look at it simplistically, what you would want to do is figure out why these people can't afford can't afford the housing, You're going to realize that legislation makes this possible for them, for these people to not be able to afford housing. But instead of figuring out, well, how can we make it to where they could afford housing? What we're going to do is pour $46 billion a year, at least, into just giving them goodies, free goodies, I guess. That's what it is. Now, I went on YouTube and I saw a recent speech done by Julian Castro because I wanted to get a feel for him. I wanted him to start saying some stuff. I wanted to see him say some stuff ridiculous, and that's exactly what I found in that speech. It was given on March 9th, 2015, in front of the City Club of Chicago, in which Julian Castro described that they are currently in the process of shaping a stronger Chicago. Now, if you're not an expert on Chicago, I'm not really an expert on Chicago, but if you're following the current state of affairs in general for Chicago, the biggest concern, or one of the biggest concerns that you're going to face, if not the biggest, would be the homicide rate and the violent crimes rate. Now, Julian Castro, he wasn't really concerned. He didn't really bring up that topic. That would be kind of a downer, wouldn't it? He brought that up. No, according to Julian Castro, what Chicago needs, what the citizens of Chicago need, is more funding, more federal funding in order to make sure that everyone has adequate housing. Just as a personal aside, there's no way that doing the job that I do, receiving the money that I get paid, there's no way possible that I could afford to house myself. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous to even think about that idea. I have enough trouble affording uh, food and buying food that I don't consider to be poison. You might say, "Oh man, you're paranoid." Yeah, I might be paranoid. I also live in the capital, world capital of diabetes. All right. So, like I said, I can afford to hardly attain for myself food that I don't consider poison. There's no way that I could afford housing. At the same time, you don't see me running around. And let me just tell you, before God, I don't go running around murdering people. I don't go running around shooting people. I don't go running around dealing drugs simply because I can't afford housing. So, i.e., housing does not necessarily, giving people adequate housing will not drop the murder rate. I don't see why giving people who are apt to murdering their own people on an extraordinary rate, how giving them more adequate housing will stop them from continuing to murder people. While doing a little research, I came across an article, and apparently there's a mayoral election coming up in Chicago. Um, where I guess the main contender for that position against Rahm Emanuel, who's the current mayor of Chicago, he described how people of Chicago are more fearful for violent crime and murder than they've ever been. They're on the seat of their pants thinking about it. What he wanted to do is hire all these cops uh, that Rahm Emanuel said he was going to hire and he didn't. That's the platform that he's going on. He's going to hire all these cops, and it's preposterous. The whole thing is ludicrous to even consider to hire more cops in order to decrease crime. Because first of all, according to the numbers, it's going to cost like $100 million to begin with. So what they're going to do, what they were planning to do, is for $100 million to hire all these cops when they could just go ahead and um, withdraw the legislation of the fact that firearms are illegal in Chicago. Now, nobody's going to contest the fact that Chicago is riddled with pockets of illegal guns. These pockets of illegal guns will not ever be gotten rid of. So obviously, if you're going to counter that, you would go ahead and make sure that everybody in Chicago has a gun. That way, everybody's kind of on a fair playing field, and that people who get shot up, uh, maybe they won't stand for it anymore because they have guns. Instead, you want to hire more police officers, which is obviously it doesn't make any sense. Anyways, back to Julian Castro before I run out of time. All right, he described shaping a stronger Chicago by way of making sure everyone has adequate housing. Like, for example, in the Woodlawn area of Chicago alone, recently the budget for providing people adequate housing, welfare, is it went up to $250 million for this one neighborhood alone, which is an increase of $150 million. $150 million increase in this neighborhood alone. Those numbers just shout out boondoggle to begin with. Secondly, it's doing nothing to alleviate the problem. Like I said, Julian Castro could care less. Anyways, this guy, if you check out the speech, it's 30-minute long speech in which he just rambles on, and he basically describes, why they need more money for federal housing. Let's not think about why people can't afford it. Let's not think about the fact that we could very well be giving housing and free goodies to murderers. In fact, statistically, it's probable. All right. Not only that, Julian Castro even went as far as to mention, just like every single Democrat probably would, who's in line with Obama, that the reason that he and his department need even more funding is for natural disasters. He brought up climate change. He said climate change is very serious, as if it's a new thing, as if climate hasn't been changing since the beginning of people, or since the beginning of the Earth, probably, more than likely. And it's funny how they interchange climate change and global warming. They don't even dare say global warming anymore. But he did mention the fact that he let me just say it slowly so you can take it all in. He went to Chicago and he told them about how 2014 was the hottest year on record. That's a quote from him. Hottest year on record, and I've heard it before. How you calculate that? Hottest year on record for the whole world? I don't know. You take all the numbers and add them up and multiply them and cross divide them. I really don't know how you do that. But he did that in Chicago, which on record just had the coldest winter since 1872 when the records were started. He said, yeah, y'all had the coldest winter since 1872 and before that. But the globe is warming, and because the globe is warming, natural disasters going to happen, meaning I need more money to throw at y'all for when disasters happen. We need more for that. Meanwhile, we're not going to address why people can not only they can't afford their own housing, but they absolutely can't afford to pay for their own personal insurance in case something like this does happen. So instead, put that in federal hands, and they'll give you the money when disaster happens. You don't have to worry about the fact that you can't afford nothing. You don't have to worry about the fact that it's record cold temperatures, and I'm telling you that it's the hottest year on record. You don't have to worry about the fact everybody's getting all murdered up. Let's just give everybody houses, and people are going to stop getting murdered up in Chicago. Yeah, that's a good idea. Anyways, I'm going to continue tearing down Julian Castro, and I'm going to continue tearing down whoever becomes the mayor, whoever's the district representative of 124. I'm going to tear all y'all down. So, anyways, y'all have a good night. I'm coming for you.